The term Western RPG has been typically used to deviate the genre between Japan and American developers. Companies like Bethesda have crafted wide-scale role-playing games with the insight of American culture to counter the often culturally stylized JRPGs. However, CD Projekt RED is an exception to this term, as their Witcher series attributes its influences from their country of origin, Poland. Based on a series of novels, this series, and particularly this sequel, Assassins of Kings, has proven itself to be the prime representation of dark fantasy in the medium of video games. Immediately, The Witcher 2 draws you in with its plot. At the start, the protagonist named Geralt awakens in prison, condemned for the assassination of King Foltest of Temeria. Simultaneously suffering from amnesia, he begins to recollect as much as possible and tell a story from there to convince his innocence, which is where the narrative begins. Initially, I felt somewhat strangely disconnected with these characters that the game had to offer, but as the story progressed, I gained a certain amount of respect for each one of them, particularly Geralt himself. In turn, I found myself pervasively invested with this dark fantasy plot, eagerly anticipating its next significant development. Perhaps the most interesting aspect of all is the game's method of storytelling. From the conclusion of the first chapter onwards, the game veers off into two very different paths, leading to significantly altered mission and plot designs. The core climactic mission remains the same on each route, but everything leading up to said events vary. Assassins of Kings places a large emphasis of its design upon its RPG elements. You possess a great variety of armor and weapons that you must equip, alongside the genre's tropes of shops and crafting. Many overarching systems include a greatly implemented skill progression tree, a potion brewing and consumption system, and even a feature to alter the time of day, as attaining certain quests will require communicating with civilians at certain times. On the note of various potion aspects, however, or alchemy as the game refers to it as, the situation is not quite ideal. Any moment you are not in combat, you can combine and create up to the limit all you want. However, once you enter the heat of battle, all alchemy usage is halted. That meaning, every potion must be consumed before or after an encounter, unless you selected an already made one from the form of a quick select. Sometimes it can be a bit bothersome, as a difficult battle could easily slide out of hand. Other than that, there is little complaint about here in regards to these role-playing concepts. Maybe the user interface could be a bit improved, but it works as is. Regardless, it is commendable how CD Projekt RED was able to streamline all these implemented systems in comparison to the original Witcher title. This previous entry of the franchise was plagued with overly complicated PC menus and poor explanations of its systems. Thankfully, The Witcher 2 contrasts with this, and contains intricate systems along with generally new player-friendly gameplay. Just keep in mind and be warned that not all of this is presented with a particular open world as you may assume. Each chapter takes place among a select town, and missions are designed from your free roaming around the entirety of that town. It's not a negative in any way, but it's clearly evident this game was begging for a full open world environment here. Challenging may be the most accurate word to describe The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings combat. Gone is the strangely rhythmic system from the original game, and adapted here is a more modern and standard implementation, akin to many action RPGs on the market. Its twist on the formula is the game's management between swordsmanship and signs, which are essentially the magic spells of the game. One-on-one fights are not difficult in the slightest, but true management comes with the addition of multiple foes, which adds for a challenging, yet rewarding experience. Actual melee action is emphasized with fluid movement, kind of similar to the Arkham games, but not quite as interconnected. The majority of the time you'll be rotating between your weak but fast attack and your strong but slow attack. Dodging and blocking are relevant features, but intervening with your various forms of magic in between sword slices is perhaps most ideal for your advantage. All of this is adhered to with the game's radial menu, which generously provides you with easy access to all forms of magic and your various weapons. Some other notable features in the game include dialogue trees and a set of minigames. The latter was almost completely lackluster, as it relied upon QTEs and RNG, while the former was somewhat sparse and inconsequential. As far as graphical components go, The Witcher 2 is merely sufficient. Upon its 2011 release, it was surely impressive. But today, some aspects do not look quite as appealing as I'm sure they were 4 years ago. One aspect that I can admit impressed me was the facial features and animations. Not only do they animate fluidly, but these faces express emotions very coherently. Each expressive face fits their respective actor, and with the exception of the occasional generic NPCs you'll come across, all voiceovers are excellent. In addition, the game evokes a superb, film-esque musical score, one that could easily challenge fellow competitors of the dark fantasy genre across all mediums. The Witcher 2: Assassins of Kings was a pleasant surprise for me. I originally purchased it for the simple sake of it being under $5 on a Steam sale. With the anticipation of the third installment growing every day, I only played it for the simple fact of the new game that was coming soon. To say that it exceeded my expectations is a complete understatement. While I feel the minigames and dialogue trees could have been elaborated more on, the general story and combat largely impressed me. I only wish the free-roaming aspects were extended more. As the game's given structure, it's seemingly begging for its own immersive open world. And judging everything I've read about Wild Hunt so far, it seems to have captured that. Let's just say that after playing Assassins of Kings, I genuinely cannot bear to wait for Wild Hunt's release.